Welcome to another episode of Griots and Books. And I am your host, Adesoji Iginla. One of my co-hosts will join us shortly, having a bit of technical issues. But that said, today we're talking about Carnegie Woodson. And in order to have a very cogent and seminal discussion about the book, The Miseducation of the Negro, I'm joined by a couple of Nubians here, and I'll start with my sister, who is, as we know, the sister with the questions, incessant questions about how to solve the world's problems. She is Sandra Crowl, a native of New York, and like you said, she is constantly thinking about how to decolonize the mind, which is what we're about to do today. So, welcome, sister.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me.
Yes. Brother Marlon. Brother Marlon is a resident of Texas, a military retiree, another bibliophile who is constantly talking about books, even in his sleep, to the point where he recently went to the continent and was even calling back to say, "Oh, have you read this book? Have you read this book?" So that said, Brother Marlon is also going to help add to the conversation with regards to why this is a very important text for us, not just to read, but reread in our own time, and also, possibly take lessons going forward. Brother Marlon, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here, Adesoji. Thanks for doing this.
Yes, and the gentleman, Dr. Travis Armstrong. He is an independent historian of Africa and the African diaspora. He's a community outreach coordinator of Foot Soldiers Journey Incorporated, a civic organization, of course, led by his cousin, Thomas Armstrong III, an original 1961 Mississippi Freedom Rider. Wow, we're in the company of history. So Dr. Armstrong also serves as an archival content contributor to the Mississippi and Alabama Departments of Archives and History, a board member of the Prentice Mississippi Normal and Industrial Institute Partnership Team, a contributing freelance columnist and writer for the historical African American newspaper, the Jackson Advocate, an online history platform, historianspeaks.org, respectively. He holds a doctorate of education in educational leadership from Trident University International. Dr. Travis is retired from the United States Air Force in 2014 after 23 years of active duty service. Wow. Dr. Travis, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be in company of such esteemed guests. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. We know why we're here. We're talking about the book. The great book itself by the great man, Carnegie Woodson, The Miseducation of the Negro. And I don't want to insult our audience by saying you would have heard of this book, considering it was published in 1933. It's a seminal book. And first things first, let's start with the lady. Who is Carnegie Woodson to you, Sandra?
Well, he's a precious ancestor that I've learned to really come to revere at this point. Just a trailblazer in Black education, just in Black institution building overall. Carnegie Woodson established Ansala in 1915, and the fact that it still exists today, they're still swinging with both fists, they're still holding up Black history, the documentation of everyday Black life. I stand in awe, and there's so much more to know and learn, and I'm on that journey. So very grateful, for Mr. Woodson.
Okay, so the same question to Brother Travis.
As Griffin said, he's someone that we stand on the shoulders of. And you know the saying, the man, the myth, the legend. Well, you take the myth part out, he's the man and the legend. You know, everybody knows, should know that name. And the institutions that he built still very much in existence today. And, you know, as we were talking earlier, you know, you can have a stack of books that were written on Dr. Woodson that, you know, you'll never get through all of them, and you will learn something new because he was just that expansive in his thinking and in his writing. So as far as book bibliophiles that we are, you know, he's just hard to read and to soak in all of that historical knowledge from him. So very grateful for his life, first of all, and certainly his scholarship.
Okay. Brother Marlon, your take?
Yeah, I echo what everybody said before. And I think when I think about Dr. Woodson in the, you know, in his time, you know, in the constellation of, you know, Black radical thinkers, you know, to me, he you know, what stands out is he didn't compromise at all. You know, like that was, to me, that was his hallmark. He, you know, everybody had publications, you know, people built institutions. But when I think about him, I just think about somebody that's uncompromising. You know, he did not, when it came to white philanthropy, you know, he would not take a dollar if it meant, you know, compromising the message. So yeah, we, you know, just proud of that legacy, proud that we get to enjoy that legacy, get to be the recipients of that legacy. Yes.
Oh. Okay. So
Talk
we
about not
also
missing
have-
it for the world.
Okay, we also have a road runner. 'Cause- so, in the interest of safety, we're gonna have to ask Sister Aya to, you know, put us on speaker and not concentrate on the camera and, you know, face front.
You are definitely on. You are definitely on speaker.
Okay. So I was throwing the question around. Kati G. Woodson. Who is Kati G. Woodson to you? Same question before we get into it.
Oh wow. I would say an uncompromising African, because he had multiple opportunities to be bought out by the system and to have them dictate the kind of work he did. But this was an incredibly focused, hardworking young man who came from very, very, what we would consider poor means. Did not go to high school, did not graduate from high school until he was, I think, almost 20 years old, but was so focused on acquiring knowledge and elevating his people that he made his way from coming from a family of coal miners, himself working in the mines, to all the way to, quote unquote, the Ivy Leagues, overcoming all kinds of odds. And then after he gets his PhD, again, think of the time. He would have been feted as that exceptional Negro and been in spaces where he could just take care of himself financially and not worry about what was happening to the rest of us. Carter G. Woodson stuck by his principles his entire life. Had the opportunity to visit the last home that he lived in, which he purchased, and he lived in a small room on the top floor, and the main floor and the second floor were all dedicated to the work of the association that he founded, which consists of, in fact, they have a function going up right now in DC. I'm making my way to the airport. So kind of just in terms of your intellect skill.
We're losing.
You put that in for the upliftment of your race. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, you faded in and out. So.
All right. Well, I was done, so I will listen until I should be at my destination in a couple of minutes.
Okay. Okay. So, the reason we brought up this text is this book is important for Black people, and we've all gotten Western education. He's of the opinion that we're all culturally indoctrinated. So what does that cultural indoctrination mean for every one of us? It's what we're going to try and break down today, and also how to get out of it. Because everyone that got a Western education here would have had to go through some degree of rote learning. And rote learning for anyone means you're not bringing your intellect to anything. You're simply just going to repeat what you've been told and passed, and then push forward. To start us off, I want to read a quote from the preface. And the quote goes, it says, "When you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. You do not have to tell him not to stand here or go yonder. He would find his proper place, and he will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go there without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will cut one for his special benefits. His education made this necessary." Who wants to have a stab at that? Ladies first.
It's a very. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm going to try and mute Sister Aya. Go ahead.
So yes, that statement is so terrifying, actually, right? The idea that you could literally program a demographic of people, the mental slavery, the idea that you could program a group of people against their own interests is terrifying. And but that reality is real, unfortunately, that we've seen the results of over the last 100 years. Just the competition for the mind of Black people, probably globally, but definitely in America for sure. And to think that when you program people to not consider themselves, to not value themselves, to actually take on the same attitude that their oppressors have of them, the same disregard, the same sorry, the words are escaping me, but just the same basic loathing for themselves that their oppressors have for them.
Yep.
Again, is one of the greatest tricks, greatest elements of psychological warfare that
Sure.
it's so diabolical. Sorry, it's taking me so long to get those words out. But it's just so diabolical that it really is terrifying. And so to understand just how significant and important, and just it really is the difference between pursuing your own liberation or sitting in your oppression, comfortable or cozy, thinking that is your station, that is the appropriate station for you in life. It's just it's something that we have to expand on. We have to make people aware of that is actually the ultimate goal of colonial education in general, is to keep us mentally enslaved.
Dr. Travis?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to bring in one of our most recent powerful ancestors, Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson Sr. I know you guys have probably seen the documentary Nation Time, and if you haven't, I would urge people to watch it. Nation Time, you can find it on YouTube, and it's centered around the 1972 Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana. And Reverend Jesse Jackson gave a speech about 20 minutes long, and he talked about the very thing that Dr. Woodson had written about some 20 years prior to that. I'm sorry, 20 years prior to Dr. Woodson's death. And Reverend Jackson said that Black people had become schizophrenic because of our educational system and the dastardly effects of colonialism. And that we needed to regain our self-esteem. And he mentioned the word ego, you know. He said, ego, we need to regain our ego to think higher of ourselves. And so, and that's what I believe Dr. Woodson was doing. You know, we need to regain our self-respect, self-esteem. But as Brooklyn said, this colonized education that he had gotten and that every Black person still today still gets is vehemently opposed to Black liberation. And so, and you know, as Dr. Jacob Carruthers talks about in intellectual warfare, you know, it's warfare. So we have to arm ourselves with the knowledge culturally centered in order to have a change in mindset in that.
Brother Marlon.
Yeah, again, I echo the sentiments of my sister and my brother. And is that from the first essay, The Seed of the Trouble?
That's the preface, the beginning.
Yeah, from the
Bottom part.
preface.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it you know reminds me of the first, and I call it essay, but in the preface he says these are not essays, these are reflections.
Reflections, yeah.
But it reminds me of that first reflection where he says lynching. There would be no lynching if it didn't start in the classroom. So I think that it lends itself,
You're being
you
conditioned.
know, right. So, you know, so again, you know, it's not too much to say on that. It's you know, it's pretty obvious from where we sit, you know. We had these different sites of these different psychological, you know, intellectual battlefields, right? And the classroom is one of the main ones. And of course the miseducation of the Negro is you know, is exposing that among other things.
Okay, so you mentioned the lynching in the classroom, so which brings us to the issue of education. And Sister Sandra mentioned education as a form of control. How do we liberate ourselves? Because it's one thing to talk about the problems. We also have to profess solutions to said problems. We know we've been indoctrinated. How do we begin to untangle the web of indoctrination?
Well, I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. I think too often in today's time, try to do things that we think are brand new instead of looking at what has sustained us in the past. And with, I won't say a lot, but I see some people taking it into their own hands and teaching our kids in our neighborhoods, in our churches, you know, self-centered education. Of course, aside from the normal K through 12 that they get every day, you know, compulsory education, you know. But I see certain organizations, grassroots organizations, taking on that task. And of course, it's an uphill climb because most of the time kids are spending in class being acclimated to certain ideas
Yep.
in a multicultural environment, you know, where too often, you know, Black or African culture is not even an afterthought. And so you have to fight that type of mindset. So coming in and taking things into our hands, the people in the community, uh, teaching our kids and, you know, putting, reclaiming self-esteem. I think that's one of the roots that we have to take on, self-esteem.
Brother Marlon.
Imagination has to play a role, right? We have to reimagine education, right? We have to, you know, and a part of that, I think what's going to come along with that, what inevitably follows is, we need our own educational institutions that are not beholden, to the state,
Okay.
in any significant way. So long as we choose to participate in state formations that, that don't have our best interests at heart, right? So until we can, conceive, of a state formation that serves our interests, then we have to reimagine, educational spaces, that are not beholden to somebody else's standards, somebody else's colonial standards, and that's going to take, that's going to take bravery. It's going to take, audacity, and it's going to take community. We have to talk to each other. We have to, like Dr. Armstrong said, we have to mine the deep well of history, and find out what worked for us, what didn't work for us, and we have to move forward in an imaginative way. So I would say imagination is a key factor.
100%, I agree. Thank you, Adesoji. I agree with both of Marlon and Dr. Armstrong. We definitely have to employ imagination to a larger degree, and pick up where people have left off. Just pick up the work, get in the community, on a community level, teaching the children we know. I think adults who are aware and who are informed have to be a bit more bold and aggressive in their contributions to their communities. I think there's definitely a gap from just your average lay person stepping up and doing the work, although you've got a lot of lay people who are doing the work, but I think we just need more. I think more parents, more aunties, just more regular folks need to step in, join reading programs, do all the things, and church, what have you, and get in there.
Okay, let me put you on the spot and say, if you had a pot of gold now, what does Sandra's educational model look like?
A pot of gold.
A pot of gold, yes.
So I had all the resources. I'd put out that call, to educators, to Black educators, and to educators who are interested in humanity. Create spaces, whether virtual or physical, because I have all the resources. So I'm creating, I'm building institutions. I'm gathering the talent to form Voltron and do Black liberation education, but applied for all who, and I guess even in that, I would incorporate probably indigenous education as well, but definitely would try to assemble as many hands as possible. If I got it all, I'm not paying attention. I don't care about the state at that point. If I got all the resources, I don't care about the state. I don't care about their state exams and all the other things. I think you've got places in the world. I know in America, at least for the time being, you've got this whole homeschooling entity that can be leveraged. I think that could be knocked out of the park. I would come at it that way, definitely from a very grassroots outside of all of, and just, I'd go back to textbooks written by Carter G. Woodson. I'd go back to whatever proved effective in the past and probably try to update it, get people. You've got scholars right now who are working on various ways to preserve the archives and to actually create archives. There's I think at Harvard, it's the Black Teacher Archive. I'd get those kind of folks in and like, give me the curriculum, give me everything that y'all. I tap into those folks. what do y'all see? And I guess with some tweaking here and there, but I would definitely be full steam ahead, not thinking about these folks at all.
Sister Aya, if you had a pot of gold, what would you do to reshape what it means to be educated?
How large is the pot?
That's a pot of gold.
Listen, it could be a small pot. We got to know how many ounces of gold we're talking about here.
It's a pot of gold.
It's a pot of gold, as big as I want it to be.
That's it.
There are many things that come to mind when I think about the barriers to us disengaging from the system that we're in now, that is just determined to, yes, control our minds. And certainly we're seeing it in real time as these white nationalists are buying up all of the social media. They're buying all of the regular media. They are the ones printing textbooks for our schools and so on and so forth. Certainly when you look at the state of Texas. And so they know that the best way to control us isn't even the chains on our legs or our limbs. It's on the mind. And so with a pot of gold, I am looking for a place where we can move, or a way that we can protect ourselves to at least keep them away from us for some time. There's a gentleman who is now an ancestor who used to say, we need about 1,000 years away from these white folk to like reclaim ourselves. And so I would be looking to create communities where we are self-sufficient. We can grow our own food. We can protect ourselves to some degree. I know that these guys are they're putting millions of pots of gold to use to get weapons of mass destruction, to bomb the heck out of people. We're seeing that happen in Iran today. Last night I was at the film premiere of, the premiere of Haile Garima's latest film. It's in multiple parts, but we watched one part of it, talking about the Ethiopian versus Italian war, which the Ethiopians were minding their business when the Italians came again to revenge for their loss in the Battle of Adwa. And you just see how these people cannot seem to leave us alone. But I think that we need some physical safety to even begin to do the work of the mind. Because we're so busy trying to protect ourselves from them and trying to still make money within their system to keep roofs over our head and food in our stomachs, that it's really difficult when you think of the average parent. Even if you say, I want to homeschool, how are you paying your bills? How is that working out? Someone still has to hustle to make things happen, right? And so there are people that I know who want to homeschool. When I homeschooled my children, who wanted that option, but just financially could not, it wasn't a viable option for them at the time. Now I know that there are homeschoolers who say, hey, we found a way to make it work, you should too, but let's just be clear, there are some barriers. Having said that, everything else that everyone else has shared, if we go back to when Black educators were doing the educating. So, Sandra, I know you mentioned the archives at Harvard, but what has Harvard done? Harvard is colonizing our information and then taking it away to places where we now have to figure out how to get it. Except their students, many of them white, will now become the experts who put out books to tell us how we should educate ourselves. So I like some of what we're seeing with the Black Men's Education Group, but other entities, even in a group that we're all a part of, Nubia, where with Base Camp, where we are coming together and figuring out how we offer and share knowledge with ourselves and with our children. It is going to require parents to get away from, I want to be my child's friend, which is really difficult to do sometimes, to I want to educate you. And so no, all your friends may have these devices in their hands, but I'm not giving you a device till you're at least 12, 13, whatever, where we have put some fundamentals in you and you know who you are. It's reconnecting to the earth for me, reconnecting to spirituality, understanding that we are divine beings and we're not beholden to this alternative world order that these people have created, where they have sold us on their alternative facts, and their facts have become real to us and they impede our progress. So there's a lot of work to be done on a lot of fronts, but I would say we first need to and I guess it's not going to be a first for us in the sense that we're going to have to do everything simultaneously. How do we disengage? How do we find safe spaces? How do we take more control of our own knowledge? And that might look like someone who's retired. Like in my community, it's a veterans community. We have people who are retired who are in their 40s. I have a friend who's medically retired, but she can do things, but she was medically retired in her 30s. Maybe those people are now creating spaces where after school, kids go to them. When I lived in Bexley, Ohio, they had a synagogue and they had a community center. And after school, the Jewish kids did not go to all the other after school programs. They went to the program run by the synagogue. And there, they were getting help with their regular school homework, but they were also getting taught about their culture, their history, and making connections within their communities. We don't need $1 million to do this. We don't need a nonprofit. It's literally going back to the basics. I'm a retiree, I'm a parent, I got extra time. Okay, I'm going to take these 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. And they come and they are educated in my home until their parents get off of work. We have to start with what we have where we can. But first, it has to be that mindset that their ice is not colder, and actually their ice is killing us. And many of us are not even there yet. We're still chasing after what they've put out for us, even though we're dying in the process.
Okay, so which actually leads us to this question. Chapter 3, it says how we have drifted from the truth. So Woodson says African Americans have been separated from the truth of their actual contribution in history due to being whitewashed. Is it making sense in light of what you are currently experiencing around you? Who wants to go first? Speaking to whitewashed history.
Oh, for sure. And to echo what Sandra and Aya said in regards to forming our own communities, if I had a pot of gold, I just go back to my own experience when I was a child. We had that in our community, in our rural community. My mother, my father, even my grandfather, and several of his kids. We had a place called Sophia Sutton Attendance Center. And on that compound, it was a large swath of land owned by several Black people. We, in line with a little bit the Black Panther program. We had the breakfast program, then we had Bible study, religion was part of it, and also we got social interaction as far as the classroom and outside of the classroom, from all the kids in the rural community. So we had that, this was the early 70s, but somehow that program went away as time went on. So those things, as I mentioned earlier, those things have been done in the past and they can be reinstitutionalized. They can be redone. And as you mentioned, the word whitewash, I think having that uh, whitewashed version of education kind of shoved down our throat, you know, and many other factors went into that, of course. Social factors went into that, of course. But that has been, you know, I say it again, it has been done in the past. So, but having, you know, a huge pot of gold, if we don't put it into the right things to solve the root of the problem, you know, we'll just be, somebody will just have some gold, you know, where in the neighborhood and our kids and our society will just keep on like it's going.
Okay.
So I'll take a stab at it next, and I'm gonna read an excerpt from that chapter, where he said, you know, 'cause that's how we drifted away from the truth, right?
Yep.
And he says the freedmen who were enlightened were given little thought, for the best friends of the race, ill taught themselves, followed the traditional curricula of the times, which did not take the Negro into consideration except to condemn or pity him. And so, you know, one thing I think about is like the Dunning School of Reconstruction, right? You know, which was, you know, until W.B. Du Bois, you know, comes out with his version of Reconstruction. You know, if you go to school, right, and you take your history, right, you're learning their version of Reconstruction, which says we didn't accomplish anything, we didn't know how to govern ourselves, right, and you know, so you have to traffic in all of these myths, right? So you don't even have a baseline. You don't have a baseline that sees you as human to even work with. And you know, I see, you know, and it's such an excellent question. So I want to touch on it too about, you know, if you had, you know, because it kind of goes into the, you know, if you had, you know, all the money in the world, and I think what people need to think about, again, you got to get away from the state. You got to get away from these state formations. The state doesn't mean us any good, right? And you have to think about, you know, because the problem that Carter G. Woodson is addressing is that these elders were well-meaning, right? They were trying to get us off the menu and to the table, right? Carter G. Woodson is saying you have to make your own table,
Table. Yeah.
right? And so when you think about what that table needs to look like, right? You really, you know, everybody that can hear my voice, I like just try and think clearly and deeply about a federated African state, right? I'm talking about a state, a black state, where South Central Los Angeles is connected to, you know, the north side of Omaha, is connected to East New York, is connected to East Miami, is connected to Montego Bay, is connected to, you know, Lagos, Nigeria, you know, all across the world, right? Where resources are shared, ideas are shared, right? Independent of the state. These things exist, right? These things exist in small pockets. We have to figure out a way to talk to each other, connect with each other, and share the resources like that, right? Because you get trapped into these. Well, if we just get accredited, then the state can give us. You're not welcome at the table. You're not welcome at the table. You're welcome on the table. you're as the kids say, you're a snack.
Yeah.
So we have to get in our minds that we need our own table.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where Woodson's work ethic came in so much, you know. It's historical about how hard he worked and some of the amenities in life that, you know, he was
didn't get.
averse to. And I think he really almost felt like he stood on an island alone, in regards to, he saw all these other people taking money from other white philanthropy organizations, the Carnegies, J.P. Morgans of the day. And so he was determined to do it on his own, hitting the road, heading south to different southern states, going door to door to black families, collecting money and sending out, lessons to schools all across the country, pretty much. So his do for self, as Marlon said, was second to none. And I think that's what the lesson in the miseducation of the Negro, because he understood that he himself, he talked about his time at Harvard, and he himself had been miseducated. So the miseducation of the Negro was a lesson to not only everybody else, but to himself. So he was talking to himself also in a sort of way.
Okay, we're talking about, obviously, the miseducation of the Negro. So G. Woodson came into his own reflection and understood what needs to be done, which sort of ties into Ngugi wa Thiong'o's book, Something Torn and New. So basically, you're a new man now. You understand there is a problem. For the average person thinking, yeah, this is a huge problem or what have you. If I go round, can you tell me, off the top of your head, 3 books that will build on what G. Woodson is talking about with regards to the miseducation, and how can you get back to ground zero? Who wants to start? Dr. Travis?
I'll start with 2, Eloquence of the Scribes.
By whom?
Ngugi.
Ayikwema, Eloquence of the Scribes.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, Intellectual Warfare, Jacob Carruthers. And I had to think about the 3rd.
Okay, so while you're thinking, go on.
Woodson wrote a book before, his first book, Education of Black People, Education of the Negro prior to 1861. Whoa. And, I think, of course, Miseducation of the Negro was a collective of articles and things he wrote prior to then. But I think that first book he wrote is very, very important, because it gives the history of Black education way prior to the Civil War. So I think those 3 would be
Okay, Sandra?
It's funny, I was thinking of that same book, The Education of the Negro prior to 1861, because that does show, just how they were doing it before the Civil War. I think the other book might be The Education of Black People by W.B. Du Bois for me, although it's from it's more of a higher education position that he's taken. The third one, I think I would have to also think on it. I'm not sure if I have a third one to pull from at the moment, but those 2 for me. Well, and I love Jarvis Gibbons, Fugitive Pedagogy. But I don't know, there's not a lot about how to fix where we are in that book, but for me that was very instructive, just on the history. But I may not have a third one. No, Marlon's got probably about 5.
I mean, he's looked over his shoulder and I'm scared of how many books he's going to throw at us, but Marlon, go for it.
Education of Blacks in the South. That's by James D. Anderson. I like Carter G. Woodson, A Life in Black History by Jacqueline Goggin. I think it's you get a lot of history in biography, and you get a lot of biographies in history. So I think if you read Jacqueline Goggin's biography of Carter G. Woodson, you will see how he navigates white philanthropy, which I think is important as we try to transition away from it
Yeah.
totally. I think Carter G. Woodson is in the vanguard in that regard. And going back to Education of Blacks in the South by James D. Anderson, you will see how black institutions created the foundation of black education, right? I think if you haven't read that book, you'll be astounded to find out how many schools we had without the assistance of, the Freedmen's Bureau or the state, or the state at all. And, as a third, a third book, I would say, um, School Clothes. I would say School Clothes by Jarvis Givens, because he centers on black students,
Okay.
right? And because we have to inspire these students, right? And that book is personal reflections of these students, of how motivated they were in this fight, right? In this fight. And a lot of the student witness that he deals with in that book are a lot of educators who these students grew up to be educators. So a lot of the titans that you hear about, it's a lot of their student witness. So those would be the three books for me.
Okay. Sister Aya, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but
Yeah, you're not going to be able to see me right now, but hopefully you
So-
can hear me. So,
so the
one of-
yeah, go on.
yeah, I heard the question. The book that is really sitting with my spirit the most, and at this point, and again, having been at Haile Garima's film premiere yesterday, we got to get that film out to everyone to be able to see. The book that's really sitting with me, and it's actually worth 3 books, is Marimba Ani's Urugu.
Wow.
And I offer that. Can
We can hear you, but you're drifting in and out.
you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you
Can
now.
you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. And I offer that because for me, it gets to the heart of who we are and what we want and who we want to be, or who we were always meant to be, versus these people, this thing that we are following, that we are letting infiltrate our minds in terms of how we see the world and how we imagine our world can be and how we can reshape it. I think that if we truly grasped what Mama Marimba Ani was sharing in terms of the asili of white people, we would not be so easily taken in. We would not be taken in at all. And when we talk about when Carter G. Woodson was talking about the black elites or the Negro elites at the time,
Mm.
and our complicity, if you will, in terms of buying into our inferiority, I don't think he was necessarily talking about those elders who wanted him to read the newspapers to them. I would say this in addition to what Marlon had shared, that what I found very instructive is also reading biographies.
Mm.
And there are any number of them out there, of just getting a better understanding of the pathways that we've had to take. And in doing so, some of the books that we should be reading have not been written. Those people are alive, and perhaps the work the young people should be doing is having conversations with the living people. And then maybe they can write the books. So yesterday, I actually had the great fortune of meeting a sister who I found out is 75 years old. And she's a framer, a master framer. Cool and calm and collected, like you weren't gonna shift her off her square at all. And all I want to do right now is call and be able to sit with that sister and get her story and understand how she 50 years ago got into framing art at a time when we had fewer opportunities than we have today. And so how does she look at this whole notion of DEI and all of that and imposter syndrome, all the things that we are buying into because people have written books about it. So certain the texts help, but I would say we've got people living today that we need to be in conversation with, that we need to be talking to. And if I were talking to a young person right now, it would be go sit with some older folk. I sat with some older folk. I try to get my kids to sit down with older folk, listen, be quiet, and absorb from their lives, more so even than the books, although of course I read books and the books are important too.
Okay. Which brings us to nearly the close. We're due to run for an hour. So this is not a question, but just sort of get you guys' thoughts on this. And it's from chapter 14. And it says, history shows it doesn't matter who is in power. Those who have not learned to do for themselves or have to depend solely on others never obtain any more rights or privileges in the end than they did in the beginning. What do you make of that quote? Yeah, go for it.
I think what he's gesturing towards in that quote is the need for institutional power, right? If you don't have institutions, right? If you don't have institutions, right? We know what Dr. Carr always says it. People don't beat institutions, right?
Yeah.
But we got to think about what institutions really are, right? Like it's not it's not only a church, it's not only a school, right? It's a manufacturing base, right? If you have a you know what I mean? It's you won't have the ability to administer services to a community without institutions, right? And if we don't have those, guess where we have to go?
To the social structure. Yep.
Yeah, you got to go to you got to go to the social structure, and now you're all the way out there, and you're in a position where you're hoping for the best, right? You're hoping for the best out of someone who has always, wanted the worst for you, right? That only lets you show up when you turn your blackness all the way down, right? When you turn your Africanity all the way down. Right, that's the only way you can get next to any of those resources that, frankly, are that you have a right to, right? So I think again, black institutions, state formations, federate our state formations, federate our institutional resources, and inspire, and figure out a way to tie all that in to inspire young folks, right? You have to make this work. You have to make it sexy. You have to, Tony K. Pombara said the job of a revolutionary is to make it irresistible. If you're not losing a little bit of sleep trying to figure out how to inspire young people and to get into this work and get into this mode of thinking, then there's something wrong. So that's what I'll say.
Sister Sandra, you're muted.
I echo Marlon 100%. The idea that we have to begin creating our own engines, institution, these places that produce, that have output, I think is really where we need to spend a lot of time, and create places that, and create spaces where people are drawn, like they want to come, they see immediately a value in being a part of it. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm trying to focus my energy as well.
Okay, Brother Travis.
Absolutely, I echo the sentiments of institution building and also looking again back in the past what had been done before. I think it's chapter 11 in the book where Dr. Woodson talks about we need service even more so, or maybe more than knowledge. And I think service was a huge part of those institutional formations in the past. It wasn't just strictly education, it was service to the community. You know, we had a lot of city clubs that were very, very active in our communities. If you look at the Montgomery bus boycott, that started all the women's clubs there in Montgomery. So service to the community should go hand in hand with educating our folks in regards to our institutions.
Okay, Sister Aya, can you hear us?
You're muted, sis.
She's muted. Okay. Okay, she's dropped off. Okay, so I want us to leave on a positive note. We've all read the book. It's written 1933. Is there one thing from the book that the book highlighted that you think we're on the path to a different place? Let's start with Dr. Travis.
Just the institutional memory. When there's in one of the books here, Marlon mentioned earlier, funny story, Langston Hughes worked for Dr. Woodson for a short time in the 1920s. And he tells this funny story that Dr. Woodson goes on the road to drop off some deliveries. He was supposed to be gone for 1 week, but he came back after 3 days. And Langston Hughes said he and the other guys were in the shipping room playing cards. And he's like, oh, Dr. Wilson's back. And he said, oh man, we're all gonna get fired. He said, Dr. Wilson didn't get mad, he didn't fire him. He called them all to his study. He said, neither you nor the race is going to get ahead by playing cards. So, you know, that was just his way. And again, just being headstrong first into
Focused.
service to the people, service to his people, service to his people. That was his thing. And if I could I read one quick passage from the
Sure, go on.
Negro Bulletin? Back, this is from 1970, November 1970. And
Sydney
Sidney
48.
Poitier gave a speech in regards to Dr. Woodson's birthday. And what I want to bring attention to is the last part of that speech. He quotes McLeod Bethune. And Miss Bethune said in 1950 after Carter Woodson's death, she said, I believe in Carter Woodson because he stirred the dormant pride in the souls of thousands, ignorant or unmindful of our glorious heritage. I love Carter Woodson, but I do not grieve for him because I know that on that April day when he left his post, he left it to join the ranks of those great servants of humanity whose leadership is timeless. So his leadership will always be timeless to our people.
Okay. I give Sister Aya to probably. Oh, that boss is loud.
Let me say something before I gotta get off here.
Okay.
And I apologize, y'all. I think that we need to start with redefining what is, or not, maybe not redefining, going back and talking about what is our definition of education to begin with. What definition are we going by? What definition was Carter G. Woodson going by? And for me, if the purpose of acquiring knowledge, skill sets, all of that is for our liberation, then it changes how we show up. But I know that my generation, and let me speak for myself, growing up, it was get a good education so you can make a good living. But what does that good living entail? And did it entail, okay, just being able to move out to the suburbs or being able to afford a better quality of life and travel first class or whatever, as opposed to really thinking about what is my education supposed to do for me. So that's what I will leave with us all. And I'm going to hang up so that you guys can finish this in a nice, concise manner. Thank you so much for going on my travels with me. And let's talk to y'all later.
Safe travels,
thank
sis.
you.
Safe travels.
Safe travels. Okay. Sister Sandra, your
And I'm just thinking about the talented temp that comes up for Woodson and how that has played out over time. And I think we still have this remnant of, the elite that we revere in some way that we think is special. And sure, they've got multiple degrees, and yes, they may have wealth, and they've got perhaps influence in places, but the fact of the matter is that talented temp doesn't typically hand back anything of substance to the average person, the regular, the lay person. And so just that this effort needs, again, this is for everybody. We have to move forward in a way that's inclusive, that doesn't matter, your financial or your class is not going to prevent you from accessing. And so I just think, again, we just have to be community minded. And I think that's part of the message that Woodson is, trying to get across to us, is that this is for everybody. We have to start across the board to educate. Because, there's holding on to an elite is not going to save anybody. It's really not.
coming. So, Brother Marlon?
So I wanna go to the seventh reflection in the Miseducation. It's called dissension and weakness. And he to quote from that, right? And this is one of my, every time, when you read one like this, my favorite, right?
Abiding
But
quote.
right, but there's a quote that says, turning their back on medievalism, these untrained youth think nothing of taking up moonshining, gambling, and racketeering as occupations, as they find great joy in smoking, drinking, and fornication as diversions, right? And later, so if you read that chapter, Carter G. Woodson has an anecdote about a whole congregation getting up and leaving because somebody tried to say something about Napoleon, right? And my point is, the masses, right? Let's forget the talented 10 for a while, right? The unwashed masses, right?
We don't wash.
Right? They know that they know this, the vast majority of them know colonialism is bull. I don't want to get you demonetized. They know it's BS, right? They know it's BS. But what have the people with letters behind their name, right? Because a big part of a big part of the miseducation of the Negro is Carter G. Woodson taking our best and our brightest to task, right? For how they engage regular folk, right? So before we denigrate our youth or anybody that's not doing what we want them to do, what alternative are we giving them?
Right.
Right? That offers them meaning, right? Can you give them something better than a dice game? So or can you give them something better than a wild Friday night? We have to be thinking about these things. We have to be thinking about these things and thinking about alternatives and how we can explain to our youth that there is a greater payoff down the line, than just a than a good time, right? Than a shortcut, because that's really where we at right now. We in a world of where shortcuts are dangled in front of you, right? You can lose weight without breaking a sweat. You can get rich without you know, you know, with a lotto ticket and stuff like that. So we really have to, you know, think about how we can provide alternatives for the youth, you know, to get involved in this freedom struggle.
So,
Yes.
in
Go on.
chapter 9, he talks about the politicians too. You know, in this season of politics and where we are right now, the politicians, you know, not having the community's best interests at heart. We have to be very mindful of who we put our support behind in regards to politics. Use them as a vehicle for our benefit, you know. So
Yeah.
exactly more.
Where he says we shouldn't just because our ancestors followed a particular line of politicians,
That's
we
right.
shouldn't also do the same thing. That would be falling off a cliff.
That's right.
So, okay. I am minded to give you back all your time, but I am greatly indebted for you guys coming through. It's been a wonderful and insightful conversation. We've been talking about Carthage Woodson's Miseducation of the Negro, a classic, and being joined by Marlon, Brother Travis, Sister Sandra, and of course our roadrunner, Sister Aya. That said, I want to give you all the final word. How can people contact you guys and reach out to you with regards to the work you're doing? Starting with Brother Travis.
You can find me on either historianspeaks.org, footsoldiersjourney.com. Hit me up on my email, travis.armstrong580@gmail.com. Hit me up, or in Nubia, T Strong 70, I think is my handle.
Okay, Sister Sandra.
I am not prolific on these social media places.
Social media
however,
spaces. You're a lone
I'm
ranger.
not. I am. You can hit me up via email if you're interested. It's Sandra Crowl 3@gmail. And in Nubia, I'm Brooklyn Knows. That's about it.
Yeah, she does knows anyway. Brother Marlon.
Yeah, you can find me in Nubia at Marlon-esque. So that's MarlonEsque. So it's like picturesque, but Marlon-esque. And you can email me at marlonesque@live.com. I do have social media, but I don't be checking it like that. So, you know,
'Cause you got the books behind you,
your
yeah.
DMs will go unread, you know. but I do check my Nubia stuff, and I do check my email. So you know, and we should be talking to each other in stuff that Black people built anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, y'all can hit me up, you know, on Nubia or my email.
Again, yes, to the audience, thank you all for coming through. If this is your first time here, do not forget to subscribe, like, share, do all the good stuff. Again, until next time, the last Monday of each month, we'll be reviewing a new book. And so the title of the new book will be flowing out in the subsequent weeks. But for now, I am Adesoji Iginla, and you can always find me on the YouTube spaces. Adesoji Speaks Knowledge. We do news review, book talk, women and resistance, you name it. We're here. So until next time, it's good night and God bless to all of you. Thank you for coming through.
See y'all later.